Hello and welcome back to Armatage Candle Company. My name is Kevin, and in today's episode, we're going to review the Lone Star Candle Supply Soy Wax Starter Kit. You can buy it online, and it gives you the opportunity to try out candle making, obviously. But what's in the box and how well does it work? That'll be the topic of today's review. Let's dive in. The candle kit comes in this gigantic box. Actually, inside of this box is another little box, but all the supplies are inside, so let's open it up and see what it comes with. The first thing is a 1.5 pound mini pour pot, 100 pack of Eco 8 wicks, a candy thermometer, 10 pounds of C3 soy wax, which I put in a bowl, 2 dye blocks, lavender and orange, a bunch of safety stickers, about 100 I think, wick stickers, more than you need, 2 bottles of fragrance oil, fruit slices, and lavender to shake things up. I chose to use fruit slices for the demonstration in this video. You've also got 12 wick bars, and not just 3, but 24 8-ounce jelly jars to make candles with. And a nice instruction sheet with 12 detailed instructions if you have no idea what you're doing, so you don't have to binge YouTube. All said and done, this kit comes with a lot of different supplies so that you can make quite a variety of candles. In fact, you can try different colors, you can try 2 different scents, and they have 24 jars, which means you're gonna be quite busy making candles for friends, families, coworkers, maybe just yourself, whatever you want to do. In this video, I'm gonna make 3 candles using the kit, and we'll talk about it afterwards. The first instruction is to measure out 1 pound of wax, which is 16 ounces or 454 grams if you're using the metric system. Now I have a scale which they don't provide in the kit, so you may want to pick one up or just kind of fill the pot all the way if that's what you're going to do. The second thing is to place this in a double boiler, and all you need for a double boiler is a pot of water brought to a boil, and you place your wax inside just like we shown here. You can use the stovetop if you need to. After that, we're going to measure our fragrance oil, and they say to measure about 1/4 ounce per pound, so 0.75 ounces. Which is roughly 21 grams if you're using the metric system. If you pour too much, you can always put it back in the bottle. After that's done, we're just going to watch our wax. You'll see that it's melting. You can stir it lightly a little bit if you need to, but it will eventually melt down. In fact, you can use the thermometer to melt it. One rule is to keep the wax below 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And take the temperature by stirring the wax a little bit and then placing the thermometer about halfway down the wax. If you want, you can just clip it to the side. It's super convenient like that. And that's what I really like about candy thermometers. The next thing we're going to do is prepare the jar with wicks. I'm going to do 3, but I'll show you 1. We'll take the glue dot or the wick stick or whatever you want to call it, put it on the bottom of the tab, and then I use a straw. This is not included in the kit, but I just use a straw. You can use your finger. And push it to the bottom. Well, when that's done, we want to make sure the wick has some structure to it when we pour wax, so we'll use this wick bar that they provided to hold the wick in the center. Now, I struggled with the wick bar, and we'll talk about this at the end, but I couldn't get the wick to even fit in it. So you can also use a clothespin. This is a great alternative, and I highly suggest it because it's very versatile and it fit these jars perfectly. When that's done, just double check our wax, make sure it's not over 200 degrees. You can see that it's not completely melted yet, so just stir it a little bit, stir it lightly. And while we're waiting for that, we'll continue to the next step. The kit provides these dye blocks, and I used a butter knife to cut through them, and they suggest about 1/4 of a block per pound for a deep shade. So I'm going to break it in half first, and then I'll break the half of that half in half again. That's a lot of halves, but that should equal to 1/4 of a block. I mean, just split it into 4 and use 1/4 of that. Once the wax reaches an internal temperature of 185 degrees Fahrenheit or 85 degrees Celsius, depending on what you're using, take it off of the heat. Make sure to stir before you take the final temperature and just double check that it is actually 185 degrees Fahrenheit or 85 degrees Celsius. You can see here in our example, it's almost exactly 185. At this point, it's good to add the fragrance oil we measured earlier and the dye. And the way that wax works, we want to make sure that this is stirred in. You can use the thermometer if you want, but stir for a full 2 minutes to make sure that that fragrance oil evenly disperses. Unmixed fragrance oil can be a fire hazard a little bit because it will pool in the candle if it's not well dispersed and mixed. And obviously you want to get the dye all the way around so you don't have weird spots of uncolored wax when you're done making your candles. The instructions suggest that we pour the wax into the jars around 140 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is a decent temperature for C3 soy wax, which is what we're using. But don't be afraid to experiment a little and see what that looks like. A lot of candle making comes down to finding out what the right process is for how you like to work and how the supplies want to react. C3 soy wax, which is included in the kit, is actually a very sensitive wax to temperature, and sometimes it can be hard to tame. Even though everything looks like it's going to turn out nice, you might find after it cools that it didn't exactly turn out beautiful or that it had craters under the surface. This is normal, and it just means that you have to experiment with temperatures that you're pouring at. So if the 140 to 160 degree range doesn't work well for you, just try a different range next time. That's one of the nice things about this kit having so much wax is you can try out a lot of different variations. After about 45 minutes to an hour, you'll see that the candle is substantially cooled. It's not ready to burn yet, but at this point you can remove all the wick clips or wick bars or clothespins, whatever you use to hold the wick, and trim the wick down to 1/4 of an inch. You can use scissors if you want, or if you have an actual wick trimmer, you can use that. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. As you can see, we substituted clothespins for the wick bars that I couldn't get to fit. Also included in the kit were lids that fit these jelly jars perfectly. And the other thing are safety stickers. So if you want to give these away to friends and family, you can feel good that they're probably not going to set their house on fire if they're reading and following the directions on the safety sticker, however realistic that is. But that's all there really is to the kit. Let's wrap up. So I'd like to conclude with some pros and some cons. These are kind of my final thoughts about this starter kit, and maybe I can give you a little insight into whether or not this is right for you. So let's start out with the cons. What didn't work so well? Well, the first thing that I didn't like is that the kit is a little bit limiting. The size of the equipment means you can only make 3 candles at a time. So given the fact that you can make 24 candles with the supplies that they give you, at least 24 jars, you can only make 3 at a time, which means you're going to do 8 batches. Now this does also serve as a pro, which I'll cover later. The second thing that I didn't really like were the wick bars. The wick bars were not really great, and maybe it's my ineptitude with what was sent in the thing, but they didn't fit the wicks at all. I struggled with them. It was a little bit frustrating, and ultimately I ended up using clothespins to seal the deal, if you will. The third thing I didn't love about this is the instructions ask you to measure out supplies. Well, you're sent a 10-pound bag of wax, and you're supposed to somehow figure out 1 pound. It's not a big deal if you have a scale, but they don't send a scale with the kit. So you're kind of left to your own devices to figure out, well, how much is a pound? And so you could just fill the pour pot all the way up with the dry wax and try to see how that ends up. But there's nothing too scientific here. And not that you have to go crazy with that, right? This is meant to kind of get your feet wet. But what I'm suggesting is that without a scale, you can't exactly measure everything the way their instructions go out. So there's a tiny bit of a mismatch there. But if you have a kitchen scale, then don't worry about it. The last con I have is that this kit is a little bit pricey. I ended up paying somewhere north of $80 and then shipping. So from Texas to Minneapolis, I think that ended up being a little bit over $100. Now, is that expensive? It depends on your budget. But what I'm saying is that if you went and picked up some supplies and you got really scrappy with it, I think you could end up making your own candle making kit, which wouldn't be quite as elaborate for cheaper, probably less than $50 for the entire kit all said and done. This one's about $80, maybe $100 depending on your shipping, but it's a little bit expensive. Let's end this review with the positive. What did I like about this kit? Well, it's extremely generous. There's so much inside of the kit. They give you 10 pounds of wax, they give you 100 wicks, they give you a bunch of glue stickers, a bunch of safety stickers. And so all said and done, with all the jars, you can make 24 candles and then some. So it's a great way to get your feet wet. You can try out a lot of different things. You get a lot of repetitions in. My con about it being somewhat limiting, that you can only make 3 in a batch, can also be interpreted as a pro, because it means that you get to try your hand at making it several different times if you work your way through the entire kit. So that's my first pro. My second pro is the thermometer included is good. It's a great candy thermometer, and you can use this going forward if you scale out into something else. There's really not much else to say about it. The thermometer is good, so I just wanted to call attention to that. The third thing I like about this kit is that it doesn't require you to have any really special equipment. Outside of the scale, you have everything you need inside of your kitchen. As long as you have a disposable cup, a measuring glass, and a pot that you can fill with water and a heat source, essentially, you can fix yourself a double boiler and make all the candles every single batch. So it's super portable, doesn't require anything special. Even without the scale, you can kind of get by. So third thing, super portable. So in summary, I'll make this final recommendation. I think this candle kit is great for people who are completely new to candle making, but are serious about getting serious. What do I mean by that? What I'm saying is that if you know you like candle making and you're like, I really think I want to do this, this kit is probably for you. It's a little bit expensive, but it comes with a fair number of supplies. Now, at the end of the day, the size of the equipment, like the pour pot and that, is not very large. So you're going to end up having to invest more into equipment, buy a larger pour pot, maybe buy a Presto pot, because it's not included in the kit itself. But it does give you all those repetitions, which are super valuable for getting serious about the craft. If you just want to make 1 or 2 or maybe 5 candles, then this kit is probably a little overboard. Now, it's got all the supplies you would need for that, but it comes with 24 jars. So I think this is for the candle maker that wants to learn it, and they think they maybe want to tease maybe starting a business, maybe going ham and do a side hustle, or maybe taking their hobby to the next level. I think this kit is a great fit for you. And that's the end of my review. If you have any questions, leave me a comment. I'll get to it as soon as possible. If you found any of this helpful, useful, insightful, interesting, whatever, leave me a like. Otherwise, I hope you make great candles. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next episode.